He walked into the most expensive restaurant in town, wearing worn-out shoes and a faded shirt. The waiter took one look at him and decided he didn't belong. But by the end of the meal, that same waiter would be standing frozen in shock, because this poor man was actually the owner of the entire restaurant. This is the story of how one mistake taught an unforgettable lesson about respect. "Sir, I think you're in the wrong place," the waiter said with a smirk, his eyes scanning the man from head to toe. His gaze lingered on the man's worn-out brown shoes, scuffed from years of use, and the faded blue shirt that had clearly seen better days. There was no tie, no jacket, nothing that screamed rich customer. The lunch crowd was buzzing with laughter and the clinking of glasses. In one corner, a group of executives discussed business deals over plates of fresh oysters. At another table, a young couple posed for photos with their expensive meals, posting them instantly to social media. But at this table, near the center of the room, the air felt heavy. Daniel, a calm-looking man in his late 30s, had just walked into La Belle Maison, the most expensive restaurant in town, a place where the average meal cost more than most people's weekly salary. Known for its crystal chandeliers, velvet seats, and a wine list thicker than a dictionary, it was the kind of place where celebrities and politicians often came to be seen. Daniel had no designer clothes. No gold watch glimmered on his wrist. And outside, no luxury car was waiting for him, just an old, modest sedan parked quietly in the corner of the lot. The waiter, Tyler, didn't just see Daniel. He judged him instantly. "Menu?" Daniel asked politely, his voice calm and pleasant. Tyler raised one eyebrow and leaned slightly forward, as if sharing a secret. "Menus," he said slowly, "are for customers who can actually afford to eat here." His words were coated in sarcasm, sharp enough to cut through the hum of conversation. A few nearby guests glanced over, their curiosity piqued. Some exchanged knowing smirks, assuming the same thing Tyler did, that Daniel had wandered in by mistake. A soft chuckle came from one table, followed by a whispered comment Daniel couldn't quite catch. But Daniel didn't flinch. His face remained completely neutral, as though the insult had floated right past him. He simply walked to an empty table and sat down, his posture relaxed but his eyes quietly observing the room. Tyler, slightly irritated that his remark hadn't driven the man away, followed him. "Look," he said in a lower tone, "there's a fast food place a couple blocks away. You might feel more comfortable there." Daniel folded his hands on the table, meeting Tyler's eyes without a hint of anger. "I'll stay here," he replied simply. The response caught Tyler off guard. He had dealt with people before who walked in, saw the prices, and left embarrassed. But this man wasn't leaving. Trying again to assert control, Tyler crossed his arms. "All right then, but just so you know, the cheapest appetizer here is $45. Drinks start at $20. The chef's special? Over $100. And that's before tax and tip." Daniel gave a small nod. "Thank you for the information. Now, may I see the menu?" Tyler hesitated, searching Daniel's face for a sign of hesitation, a flicker of doubt, anything. But there was nothing. Just calm, steady confidence. With a reluctant sigh, Tyler finally placed the menu in front of him, but not without muttering under his breath, "We'll see if you can even pay." Daniel didn't open the menu right away. Instead, he looked around the room, the elegant paintings on the wall, the flicker of candlelight, the way the staff hovered around certain tables while ignoring others. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Something about Daniel's quiet composure didn't match the story he had built in his head. And yet, he still believed he knew exactly who Daniel was, just another man in worn clothes, out of his league, trying to pretend he belonged. What Tyler didn't know was that in just a short while, this poor man would change everything he thought he knew, about money, about respect, and about the very restaurant they were standing in. Tyler walked away from Daniel's table with a forced smile plastered on his face, but as soon as he turned his back, his expression shifted to a smirk. He passed by another waiter, Sam, and muttered under his breath, "Watch that guy at table 7. I bet he orders a glass of water and leaves as soon as he sees the prices." Sam frowned. "You don't know that." "Oh, I know the type," Tyler replied, grabbing a notepad. They stroll in, wanting to experience fine dining, but they can't even pay for a salad. He chuckled as if the thought amused him. Meanwhile, Daniel sat quietly, unbothered by the waiter's attitude. He leaned back in his chair and glanced out the window, watching the busy street outside. Pedestrians bustled past the glass, some dressed in sharp business suits, others in casual wear, but Daniel wasn't focused on them. He seemed to be deep in thought, as though the restaurant's atmosphere was a test of some kind. When Tyler returned to take his order, he didn't hide his condescending tone. "So, sir," he began, emphasizing the word sir like it was a joke, "what will it be? A side of bread? Maybe a small soup?" Daniel looked up, meeting his eyes with the same calm expression as before. "I'll have the chef's special of the day, a bottle of your finest red wine, and the deluxe seafood platter." Tyler blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Ah, you're aware that's going to be over $300, right?" Daniel nodded once. "I'm aware." Tyler scribbled down the order, his smirk returning. "All right, big spender," he muttered as he walked away. In the kitchen, he couldn't resist sharing the situation with the chef. "Guess what, Marco? We've got a guy out there dressed like he came from a thrift store, ordering the most expensive items on the menu. This is going to be hilarious." The chef frowned. "You shouldn't judge customers like that, Tyler." But Tyler just shrugged. "Trust me, I've seen this before. He'll either run out or beg us to remove half the order when he sees the bill." Back at the table, Daniel sipped the water that Sam, not Tyler, had brought. Unlike Tyler, Sam treated every guest with the same respect, and Daniel appreciated that small gesture. As the minutes passed, the delicious aroma of the chef's special filled the air. Guests around Daniel's table began receiving their meals, steaks sizzling on hot plates, pasta dishes crowned with fresh herbs, desserts so artfully plated they looked like sculptures. When Tyler finally arrived with Daniel's order, he placed the dishes down with exaggerated care, as if to emphasize how extravagant they were. "Enjoy," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Daniel thanked him, picked up his fork, and began eating at a leisurely pace. He didn't rush. He didn't glance at the prices on the menu again. He simply enjoyed the food as though he had been here 100 times before. Still, Tyler hovered nearby, pretending to wipe down tables but actually keeping an eye on him. Every bite Daniel took seemed to irritate him further. At one point, Tyler leaned toward another table and whispered loud enough for Daniel to hear, "He's probably maxing out a credit card right now. Poor guy." The comment drew a few chuckles from the nearby diners. Daniel didn't react, not a glance, not a word. In fact, his calmness made Tyler uneasy. This was not how it usually went. By now, most people who were out of their depth would start fidgeting, checking their wallets, or looking nervous. But Daniel? He was steady, almost serene. When the seafood platter arrived, a towering arrangement of lobster, crab, shrimp, and oysters, Tyler's patience was wearing thin. "You know," he said, standing by the table, "most people take photos of this dish. It's kind of a big deal." Daniel simply smiled. "I'm not here for photos. I'm here for the food." Tyler forced a laugh and walked away again, muttering under his breath, "We'll see if you're still smiling when the bill comes." He didn't know it yet, but with every insult, every assumption, and every smug glance, he was digging himself deeper into a hole, one that would collapse on him the moment Daniel decided it was time to reveal who he really was. Daniel was halfway through his seafood platter when the restaurant doors swung open, letting in a burst of warm afternoon sunlight. A small group stepped inside, 3 men in crisp suits and a woman in an elegant navy dress. Their confidence was evident in the way they walked, as if they were used to being in rooms where everyone noticed them. Tyler immediately straightened his posture. This was the kind of table he loved serving, people who looked like they would order the most expensive wine without blinking. He practically jogged to the entrance to greet them. "Good afternoon and welcome to La Belle Maison," he said with his most charming smile. "Your table is ready." But before he could lead them to a corner booth, something unexpected happened. One of the suited men, tall, with silver hair, spotted Daniel in the center of the dining room. His face instantly lit up. "Daniel. Is that you?" Tyler froze mid-step. "Wait, they know him?" The man walked straight to Daniel's table, followed closely by the others. The woman leaned forward with genuine warmth. "We didn't know you were back in town. When did you get here?" Daniel put down his fork and stood to shake their hands. "Just a few days ago. I thought I'd stop by and see how this place was doing." Tyler's mind was racing. How does this guy know people like them? As they chatted, more eyes in the restaurant began turning toward the scene. It was obvious these weren't casual acquaintances, they spoke with the easy familiarity of old friends. The silver-haired man even patted Daniel on the shoulder and laughed. Still the same Daniel, never needing to show off, and always enjoying the best food in town. Tyler felt his throat tighten. He had assumed Daniel was out of place here, but now he was surrounded by people who looked like they belonged more than anyone else in the room. Moments later, the head chef himself, Marco, appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Daniel," he exclaimed, his Italian accent warm and booming. "If I'd known you were coming, I would have made your favorite dish." This time, Tyler's jaw actually dropped. Marco was known for being selective about who he greeted personally, even celebrities often didn't get that honor. Daniel smiled. "I didn't want special treatment, Marco. Just wanted to enjoy the food like everyone else." The chef grinned. "For you, it's never like everyone else. You've always been family here." Tyler felt a cold weight in his stomach. "Family?" The manager, who had been talking to another table, noticed the commotion and hurried over. The moment she saw Daniel, her eyes went wide. "Mr. Daniel, I had no idea you were visiting today." Her tone was a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Is everything to your satisfaction?" Daniel gave a polite nod. "So far, yes. I'm just observing." Tyler's ears burned. Observing? Observing what? He suddenly had the sinking feeling that Daniel's calm demeanor since the moment he walked in had been intentional, as if he had been watching something unfold. The group stayed for a few minutes, chatting and laughing with Daniel before heading to their reserved table. But the energy in the restaurant had shifted. Staff who had ignored Daniel earlier now made sure to pass his table more often, just in case he needed something. Even Tyler, who had been so smug minutes earlier, now felt a gnawing unease in his chest. He still didn't know who Daniel was exactly, but he was starting to realize that his earlier assumptions might have been a huge mistake. What Tyler didn't know was that he was just minutes away from finding out the full truth, and it was a truth that would make his face burn with embarrassment for a long time to come. The last bites of Daniel's seafood platter were gone, and the deep red wine in his glass swirled lazily as he took one final sip. Tyler watched from across the room, arms folded, rehearsing the moment in his head. Any second now, he thought, he's going to panic when he sees the bill. When Daniel set his fork down, Tyler made his move. With a bright but fake smile, he approached the table, holding a black leather check folder. "Here you go, sir," he said, placing it in front of Daniel with a little too much enthusiasm. "Your total for today's meal." Daniel opened it, glanced at the bill, and nodded slowly. I think there's a mistake." Tyler smirked. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "Oh, no, sir. That's the correct amount. We're very precise here." Daniel looked up, his tone calm and even. "I believe you've charged me as a regular customer." "That's because you are a regular customer," Tyler said firmly. "We don't make special exceptions here. Everyone pays." There was a brief pause. Daniel set the bill down gently and leaned back in his chair. "Tyler, I'm not a regular customer. I'm the owner of this restaurant." For a split second, Tyler thought he had misheard him. "You're the what?" Daniel's lips curled into a faint smile. "I bought La Belle Maison 5 years ago. I've been overseas managing other investments, but today, I wanted to see how things were running without anyone knowing who I was. The words hit Tyler like a bucket of ice water. His mind raced back to every smirk, every sarcastic comment, every time he had told Daniel he didn't belong here. He suddenly wished he could rewind the entire afternoon. The nearby diners, overhearing the conversation, turned to watch. The chef, Marco, emerged from the kitchen again, confusion on his face. "Owner? You didn't tell me you were coming." Daniel shrugged lightly. "That was the point, Marco. I wanted to experience the restaurant as any guest would. No special greetings, no extra attention. Just honest service." The manager, now pale as paper, rushed over. "Mr. Daniel, I should have recognized you. Please forgive us if your visit wasn't up to standard." Daniel's gaze shifted from the manager back to Tyler. "The food was excellent. The kitchen's doing a great job. But the service," he let the sentence hang, his eyes locked on Tyler's. "Needs serious improvement." Tyler's voice cracked. I didn't know. I thought." Daniel raised a hand to stop him. "Exactly. You thought. You judged me by my clothes, my shoes, the car I drove here in. That's not how we treat people in this business, or in life." The room was dead silent, the kind of silence that makes every breath feel louder. Tyler's ears burned with shame, and his earlier confidence had completely vanished. Daniel stood, pulling a sleek black credit card from his wallet. He placed it on top of the bill. "Run this through, and please make sure the busboy who brought me water earlier gets a generous tip. He treated me with respect from the moment I walked in." Tyler swallowed hard, nodding quickly. "Yes, sir." Daniel looked at him one last time before heading for the door. "Remember something, Tyler, appearances are deceiving. You never know who's sitting at your table, or how much they can change your future." And with that, he walked out, leaving Tyler standing in the middle of the dining room, surrounded by curious diners and staff members who had just learned a lesson they would never forget. Tyler stood frozen for several seconds after Daniel left. His hands felt clammy, and his chest was tight, as if all the air had been sucked out of the restaurant. The chatter of customers slowly returned, but it was different now. Many glanced at him with raised brows, whispers passing between them like quick sparks of gossip. The manager stepped in close, her voice low and stern. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" I didn't know," Tyler stammered. "I thought." "That's the problem," the manager cut in. "You thought instead of treating him like any other guest. Now the owner knows exactly how you treat people you think can't pay. That's not just bad for you, Tyler, that's bad for all of us." The weight of her words hit him harder than Daniel's had. Tyler's earlier arrogance was gone, in its place was a gnawing pit of regret. Across the room, Sam, the waiter who had brought Daniel his water earlier, quietly stacked glasses onto a tray. Tyler noticed him and remembered Daniel's final instruction: make sure the busboy gets a generous tip. Sam looked at Tyler, his eyes carrying a mix of pity and silent warning. "You never know who you're talking to, man," he said simply before walking away. That night, Tyler lay awake in bed replaying the scene over and over. He saw himself smirking when Daniel walked in. He heard his own sarcastic words: "Menus are for customers who can actually afford to eat here." The more he thought about it, the more it made his stomach turn. It wasn't just that Daniel was wealthy. It wasn't just that he was the owner. It was the realization that he had treated a human being as if they were less than, all because of a shirt, a pair of shoes, and an old car. The next day, Tyler returned to work earlier than usual. He was nervous, unsure whether he'd even have a job. When he walked in, the manager called him into her office. "Mr. Daniel left instructions," she said, her tone unreadable. "He doesn't want you fired, but he expects you to change." Tyler blinked in surprise. "He doesn't want me fired?" The manager sighed. "No. He believes everyone deserves a second chance. But he also said this is your last chance. One more incident like yesterday, and you're gone." Tyler nodded quickly. "Understood." Over the weeks that followed, Tyler made a conscious effort to treat every customer with respect, whether they were in an expensive suit or wearing worn-out sneakers. He greeted people warmly, listened without judgment, and even apologized quietly to some regulars he realized he'd once looked down on. Word spread among customers that the service at La Belle Maison felt different, warmer, friendlier. Some had no idea why, but others whispered about that day when the owner visited in disguise. As for Daniel, he returned about a month later. This time, when he walked through the door, Tyler approached with genuine respect. "Good afternoon, sir," Tyler said, offering a sincere smile. "It's good to see you again. Would you like your usual table?" Daniel studied him for a moment, as if searching for something in his eyes. Then he nodded. "Yes, please." Tyler served him without a hint of sarcasm. He didn't hover. He didn't make assumptions. And when Daniel finished his meal, Tyler simply said, "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Daniel. I hope you enjoyed your day." Daniel left a tip, generous, as always, and as he walked out, he gave Tyler a nod that said more than words ever could. The lesson was simple, yet it had taken Tyler one of the most humiliating days of his life to truly understand it. Respect costs nothing, but its value is everything. You never know someone's story, their struggles, or their successes just by looking at them. And in a world where judgment comes too quickly, kindness can be the difference between burning a bridge and building one. And from that day forward, Tyler never forgot that in every chair sat a person, not a price tag. And that day proved one thing: you can't judge a book by its cover, because respect costs nothing, but its value is everything. If this story inspired you, make sure to hit that like button, it helps more people hear stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe with the bell on, so you never miss the next one. Until next time, stay kind, stay humble, and keep the stories alive.